This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing fantastic.
Well, I must say your hair looks really good in this humidity.
You know, I'm looking at myself at the Zoom meeting, and it doesn't look as good as it does in your eyes, I think.
Well, honey, if you could only see, as what I tell all my friends, if you could only see yourself through my eyes, you'd fall in love with yourself all over again. Now, there's something I'm not too much in love with, but I have to say, I really do love this idea.
Yes.
In South Korea, they're very crafty. They've invented a toilet that turns excrement into energy.
Ooh.
Even allows students to purchase stuff with the amount of poop they produce.
Ooh.
At a university in South Korea, human waste is being used to help power a building. And this process also turns excrement into a digital currency. Probably better than an NFT, or maybe it is. Anyway, according to Reuters, or should I say Roto-Rooter, the toilet employs a vacuum pump to draw waste into the underground bioreactor, which features microorganisms that break down the waste into methane. So then this becomes a source of energy for the building. It powers a gas stove, hot water boiler, solid oxide fuel cell. So its special pump seems to reduce water waste. The toilet is the invention of Cho Jong-won, an urban and environmental engineering professor at the Ulsan National Institute of Science and Technology. You know I love science, Tim. It's called the BVI toilet, from the words be and vision. Now, he conceived a virtual currency to go along with the poop machine called Gool, that is Ggool, which means honey in Korean. So each student who uses the toilet earns 10 Gool a day, and they can use it to buy products at the university, such as coffee, instant cup noodles, fruits, even books. Quote, if we think out of the box, feces has precious value to make energy and manure. I'll put this value into ecological circulation, Cho told Reuters. No relation, I don't think, to Margaret, although I'll have to ask on that one.
Are you still on this one? Because, I mean, the feces
I'm still a little bit more. So anyway, it's a superior eco-friendly toilet, and it lets the students at the university earn money from pooping in order to buy products. I mean, amazing. I just think it's fan-feces-tastic. So, quote, I had only ever thought that feces are dirty, but now it's a treasure of great value to me. I even talk about feces during meal times to think about buying any book I want, quote, if a student. Now, Cho, the inventor of the BioVi toilet, says the average person defecates about 500 grams or just over I've never weighed it, a pound a day, which can be converted into 50 liters of methane gas. So this produces enough electricity, which is, you can run a load of dishes. It's an energy saver, power a car for 3/4 of a mile. We need more inventions like this, Tim.
Pound for poop, the feces species, buying bile. I have to say, with all the engineering feats throughout the history of mankind, modern day plumbing, I mean, we have the smartest minds in the world just to figure out how to get rid of it. So it's amazing that we're recycling it if we can manage to do so. And that's why I always said, in terms of sexual fetishes, I think the feces oriented ones might be the most transgressive.
I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we work so hard to get rid of it, but maybe this is
what's interesting to me is about, waste water and treatment plants. There is so many drugs that actually trout are becoming addicted to oxycodone and oxycontin, which is just terrifying. So, I mean, I figure if they can translate our poop into ecologically sound bio-dollars, what can they do with our urine?
So speaking of oxys, or more on the subject of opiates, the latest science technology dealing with a potential wonder drug of dealing with the addiction to opiates and the opiate.
It's an epidemic. I mean, there's been more overdoses in the last year during the pandemic than ever before.
The famous and infamous UC Davis, who invented like glow-in-the-dark pumpkins. I don't know. They do all types of funny stuff there. They are now extracting tarantula. Now, I know you have a history of spiders, but
venom, I do love the tarantula.
They think it's going to be the secret ingredient in terms of dealing with opiate addiction and the new wonder drug.
Tarantula sauce?
Of course, there's always these new wonder drugs.
Tarantula
venom.
Not all tarantulas are venomous.
No, I think they all have. They're not
It's funny that I had a tarantula that never bit me. It was all the other mini spiders that came back.
Well, no, because it's all, like for instance, a red ant has more, their venom's more deadly than the most venomous snakes, but it's such a micro dose it's so extremely small. That's why it hurts so much. Like this little thing's like, ow, because it's just such a microscopic amount that you get. So yeah, all these things have.
I mean, I hate to get back to poop, but I mean, speak about a fucking shithead. All right.
Yes.
Former guy, that would be diaper Donnie Trump.
Okay.
I had him. Well, I believe everything because all he tells is lies, so I believe them all. Wanted to execute the staffer who leaked to the press that he had been taken to the White House bunker amid the Black Lives Matter protest. And quote, whoever did that, they should be charged with treason. He's the only one who should be charged with treason. Trump yelled during a meeting, they should be executed. He should be excommunicated from all human life. Now, the Wall Street Journal reporter Michael Bender
sounds like a good time.
Detailed the incident in his new book, Frankly, We Did Win This Election, the inside story of how Trump lost. Now, Trump tasked his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, that idiot, to hunt down the leaker and remained angry about it for days, Pender wrote. President also tried to downplay the incident, saying, I was there only for a tiny, short little period of time, more for an inspection. He was probably looking for a place to take a fucking big fat McDonald's Happy Meal shit.
Well, I don't want to get too down on all this, but I just feel like, the fucking bought and sold shit news out there. Their ratings are down because Donald's not just causing chaos 80 times a day. And so there's grabbing at stories. I just don't think they got enough on him. And as Simon, the producers, brought up a very good point. You have, going back to the opiate epidemic, you have the Sacklers who basically get a fucking slap on the wrist after just the insane devastation that they are directly connected with. And it's nothing really compared to what they're at least trying to charge Trump on right now. And I'm just saying, I don't know if they're really going to get him on maybe even anything, and get ready. Because if they don't, that's just going to be, see, there's nothing. It's sort of like the whole FBI probe thing. So, and then get ready for fucking Hitler 2.0. Because if it's not Trump, it's going to be someone else that just basically embolden based on the fact they can't get him on anything, his supporters. So, I'm just like, whatever. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to change the directions on this one. So the bowling ball guy, also known as David Olson, and where is it? Somewhere in Michigan. I can't even read my own writing here. He's basically taking apart these old cement steps on his property. And, he's going through there, blah, blah, blah. He's like, there's a bowling ball underneath here. Then he starts digging more and more and more. He basically finds 160 bowling balls.
I did see that.
Whatever. And he's like, what are these things? Are they filled with something? Like, what's even going on? It's like weird, as Canada's dealing with their mass graves, he's dealing with another mass grave in
bowling
bowling balls.
Tim, I bet you're a damn good bowler.
I like Candlepin. But
I
like whipping things down as fast as I can.
I like to throw big balls anywhere I can.
But nice. Well, David Olson said, I just want to find out what's going on here. And I can't believe this story has gone so viral, because now it's like gazillions of people. The story keeps on just feedbacking on itself. It's maybe not even a good story. I'm telling it. But it's all over the place.
Tim, I imagine it is. I'm wondering if you have any other shorties, because after this, I've got I have a pretty elaborate tale to tell, and it leads quite nicely actually into our next guest, which is Ian White. So it kind of leads into him, who is a expert of religious art, and this kind of has a religious bent. So I'm going to see if you got any lightweight happy animal stories.
I have a few lightweight ones. Do you want that before?
I think you better do it now, because this is going to lead into Ian White.
All right. And it's insane, all the amount of animal stories. I mean, there is the 2-year-old farmer girl that there's a army of chickens that follows her everywhere. And she's like hundreds of them. And she's like considered like she is the golden egg of the eggs. Like they just follow her everywhere. But that's not the story I'm going to go with. Dog trainers are being employed, that they're getting, the phone is ringing off the hook because of what they call them pandemic pets. So many people adopted, estimated 1.6 million households in America adopted dogs. these pet trainers are saying they're seeing things that they've never seen before. Dogs jumping out of windows that are like 2-3 stories up. Dogs like burrowing through multiple walls into other apartments. In other words, there's all these families who just didn't grow up with dogs. And during whatever they're going through psychologically during the pandemic, they've adopted these dogs. And the dogs are feeding off of their anxieties, is basically the theory, because the dogs are acting insane in these houses that have never had dogs before. Now, of course, humans have domesticated dogs over tens of thousands of years, and there's a long history with domestication, but it's not working out so well. And so they don't know, they're being brought back to kennels. It's a disaster. But before you go into it, here's an actual sad but kind of entertaining pet.
Oh, please. I love to cry.
Sort of pet story.
Petrifying.
Azul, the peacock mascot in Humboldt County in this one neighborhood, just showed up one day, some kind of hippie fucking area. And everyone's like, this thing's cool, hangs out in the garden. We all love it. And you know, would come out, check out when they're having little picnics and barbecues. One
peacock
day,
barbecues?
Well,
Picnics?
no. Well, it might. One day, Melissa Glass, who was this woman, a resident in Humboldt County, who fed this thing regularly, finds a thing with a shotgun. I mean, it's just been shotgunned to death. Oh yeah, they don't know what's going on. Like
that's horrible.
Why has it been massacred?
Oh, I know.
So upon further investigation,
right,
they dug up in Craigslist an anonymous person who put up a bounty saying he wanted this thing, quote unquote, eliminated. And someone took it. The police are investigating, but in the middle of the night, someone showed up and massacred this.
I mean, that's freaking awful. Now, I know that in Weasel Walter's hometown of Rockford, there is a gang of wild turkeys that go after the mailman. Now, I can understand shooting a goddamn turkey. Thanksgiving's coming up and not that far away. But anyway, it's mania. And speaking of mania, I don't know if you heard about this one, Tim.
I haven't. I haven't heard it yet.
In the year of my birth, that is the year of the true coming of the second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh Lydian Christ. In 1959, in the Ypsilanti State Hospital in Michigan, there lived 3 men who each believed that they were the biblical figure, Jesus Christ. Now, each of the men had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and would soon be the subject of an ethically dubious and at times distressing experiment by their psychologist, Milton Rokeach. Rokeach believed he could break their delusions by getting all 3 of these Jesus come latelys together, prompting them to question their identity as God's only son.
Did it explode? They explode or something?
Well, as such, the 3 were moved to the same ward, held many meetings together under Rokeach's supervision to play out what was at best a mediocre sitcom idea at the doctor's request. Now, the first meeting was, as you'd probably expect, a little tense. These men were unshakably convinced of who they were, and so when confronted with somebody else claiming their identity, the 3 became hostile to who they believed were imposter. I'm telling you, I'm God, the patient Joseph yelled when Clyde protested. Now, obviously, over time, the experiments, which lasted about 2 years, the doctor would come to use many different techniques, which his students came to see as cruel and unethical, no doubt. First of all, religion to me is cruel and unethical. At times, the team would play along with the patient's delusions, and others, they would question them. During one portion of the experiment, they hired an attractive research assistant in an attempt to get the 3rd member, Leon, to fall in love with her and use her to break his belief. He did fall in love with her and withdrew even more than he had previously when he discovered she was only flirting with him on request. Leon said, "Truth is my friend. I have no other friends." The relative friendliness that the men showed to each other, which the doctor put down to the patients attempting to appear friendly to each other, and all of them trying to befit the status of the Son of God, soon broke down and led to verbal and physical fights between the 3 Jesuses. Now, in one meeting, Clyde declared that Leon ought to worship me. I'll tell you that. To which Leon replied that he was a creature who needed to wake up to the facts. Another day saw Clyde announce, "I'm going to kill you, you son of a gun." When Leon declared that Clyde's foster father was a sandpiper, a type of bird. The first violence occurred during an argument over whether the biblical figure of Adam was white or not, as well as whether Adam was Leon's brother-in-law. Clyde punched Leon, who did not respond. Now, the patients, especially Leon, believed that the psychologists were trying to agitate, no doubt, one against the other.
This is inspiring something. I'll tell you afterwards.
Well, and although you could maybe argue that at least the psychologists were attempting to understand and treat the patients, oh, really? Patients at the time were often set aside without proper treatment. And let's face it, the researchers began to send letters to the patients pretending to be from the head of the hospital, or in Leon's case, an invented Madame Yeti woman who he believed to be his own wife. The letters promised that she would show up and meet with him at the hospital. When she didn't show up, obviously, Leon became very angry, disturbed, not to mention confused and violent. Well, the experiment went on, and the three were moved into closer quarters during the day as well for meetings, and they developed strategies for talking to each other without antagonizing, which to me is amazing, because after all, there was probably either many or no original Jesuses.
Well,
now, yeah,
according to my friend, there's two Jesuses.
Well, the experiment was by no stretch of the imagination a success, and the only shift in identity came when Leon requested that people call him Dr. Righteous Idealized Dung rather than Jesus of Nazareth. Why?
Full circle.
So many poop stories, and he continued to believe that he was God. Well, anyway, the doctor wrote an account of it in a book entitled The Three Christ of Ypsilanti.
Jesus.
I know. And he did quote, this is the doctor. I really had no right, even in the name of science, to play God and interfere round the clock with their daily lives. No fucking shit, doctor. But while I had failed to cure the three Christs of their delusions, they had succeeded in curing mine of my godlike delusion that I could change them by omnipotently and omnisciently arranging and rearranging their daily lives within the framework of an institution.
Well, listen. This is inspiring. With all the kind of provocative professional wrestler characters, how come someone has not become like they play Jesus but as a schizophrenic, and you go to all these hick towns or like,
well, I know your personal Jesus might have been gold, might have been,
and then you have a Jesus like in the typical costume and look doing like super fly
Tim,
snooker
your
your
favorite was Gold what?
Gold Dust. Oh, I love Gold Dust.
I loved Roddy Piper. Oh wow,
Gold Dust was like a
first tranny.
Tom of Finland meets a trans meets a black metal Scandinavian rock musician. It was a kind of an ingenious combo.
Well, what's not to love? Because the winner is the enemy in that case, because people were, rooting for and against at the same time somebody that was so outlandish. Now, I think we're going to wrap this up because we have a lot to talk about with Ian White.
Yes, we do.
Back to
Simon's grimacing the whole time. I don't know what's going
back
on.
to religion. One of Ian White, formerly of Gallon Drunk, Big Sexy Noise, now has his own new album called Blyth out, and I continue to perform with him after many decades, is a master of religious art from the 15th and 16th century, as well as many other talents. So with that, I'd like to say this has been the Lydian Spin, and will be the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Ian White. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and one of my favorite musicians and humorist people. That would be percussionist, master drummer Ian White. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Ian. How you doing?
Pleasure. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm all right. Quite hot. Very hot here, but
What's hot in London terms?
29.
That's pretty hot for that's for the American viewers. I would say that's about 87 or something. Let me. Someone got to check me on that one.
We're having a bit of a cool wave, which of course I respond to because Ian, have you ever known me to be cold?
No.
I was over. Did
you say in 84?
It's 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, and in London, but that's kind of new these days, right? I mean, years ago, a London summer was kind of 22, 21 ish, and.
Yeah, that's how I preferred it.
It's going to be 115 degrees in Arizona, and in New York, we're having fall-like weather. I thought when I asked you, have you ever known me to be cold? The last time might have been 1984.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I'll say this about Lydia Lunch. If she's cold physically or socially, you got to fucking start looking over your back, your shoulder, because something's gonna happen.
It's gone from a Coney Island of the mind to a Siberia of the ass. I'm joking. I love to hear Ian White chuckle, and I have to say, and we're gonna go into history in a minute, but I always fear when I'm with Ian that he's gonna laugh so hard he might break a rib.
And you don't show fear, so that's a pretty serious point, actually.
That's true. Yeah, very true.
I fear I'm gonna break his rib by him chuckling. Let's go into your history a little bit, Ian. First of all, we're celebrating the release of your first and may I say, fantastic solo outing called Blyth. Is it Blyth?
Yeah.
And Blyth is the name of the town in Newcastle that you're from?
Yeah, it's the town in Northumberland, which is about 20 miles north of Newcastle, where I was born, which is horrible, hideous place.
Are you officially a Geordie if you're outside of Newcastle? Yes, you are.
I'm probably a Northumbrian, but maybe people would call me a Geordie. But
okay.
And we've talked about this before, Ian. But for those of most of our listeners who have no idea, because now Newcastle is, of course, like every place is different than it was when you were a teenager. But when you were growing up, it was pretty brutal and you were ostracized just because you were and you looked different. Right. And probably because also your image at the time, I mean, we're talking maybe like post-glam, but that's what you're coming up out of. But it's not an easy time walking the streets of Newcastle.
Not at all. I mean, people didn't like it. And also you still had factions then, you still had skinheads, you still had Teds even, and then you had just like hard people who were just horrible. So if you had, if you looked a bit different, obviously that was the perfect thing to be picked on. And if I had really long hair and all that and was a bit feminine, and so that was the perfect fodder for people who wanted to fight. So
you may have looked a bit feminine, but you became one of the most delightful ladies men I've ever met. You had that working in your favor. I wanted to on the same theme of America, we're known for this ridiculous amount of gun violence and racism and domestic violence. But the British form of violence is pretty extreme as well, and a lot of beatdowns for no reason. But you have also, when you didn't have long hair or looked at all different, you looked like you might have been going to a low-paying office job, have been attacked at the bus stops repeatedly.
Yeah.
In Newcastle.
No, in London actually.
Oh yeah. What's going on? My theory, and I'm not a pro easy access to handguns kind of guy, but you think there's a little bit of truth in that? I mean, what I'm getting at is the Brits are pretty quick to attack, and in America maybe not so, because you don't know if someone's got a fucking gun.
Well, wait. Well, I want to get into Ian's experience, but I have to say this: one of the most outrageous acts of violence, and this is, I think, just indigenous to Britain, is the Chelsea smile, which is when they take a switchblade and pull a Chinatown on your mouth, so it turns you into a joker. And this happens on the train. Now, is this usually after a football game?
Yeah. It used to be because of football
Chelsea.
rivalry. Yeah, Chelsea, and also there's a lot of London football clubs, which,
right.
It was very rough in the 80s. And even in the 90s, there's a lot of football violence. You had to keep people apart.
Who's the skinhead one? What, there's a kind of like a neo. There's one club where there's
a club called Millwall, which is really nasty.
Okay,
they're not great. They're not a great team, but they were renowned for like real sort of neo-fascist sort of
right.
They're the Bronson of ball games.
Yeah, exactly.
And anybody that doesn't know the film Bronson, about the longest incarcerated criminal in British history, which is a great film. It's terrifying, horrifying, and it's really beautifully shot. Anyway, but I mean, back to you, Ian. Standing at the bus stop and like two separate didn't you have your jaw broken and your arm broken? No reason.
No, I mean, it was just, like
separate incidences.
Yeah, separate. Yeah. So, just, I suppose, being in the wrong place and just unlucky. But I don't know why it happened. I mean, one time it was like there was 3 black guys, other time 3 white guys, So
it's just pretty random.
Yeah, very random. Yeah.
So they're not prejudiced against you when they want to have violence. Well, the thing is, on that tip of violence, though, for a minute, excuse me, Tim. You are one of the most practical appearing, calm, resilient people I know, but I have seen you go from 0 to 200 when you needed to step up to violence. And it is very impressive because it's not that it might not be in your nature yet. Everybody has a lot of buried rage, but when it's mandatory, and I'm thinking of the last time Big Sexy Noise played, when you actually went after the promoter who was being a bit of a dick and you threatened to fucking knock his block off. Not to mention that incident on a train we had where somebody, we never do this, we never lose things. Somebody grabbed my bag, you grabbed them, and with one swelled kick right off the platform, almost did a somersault.
Yeah.
And your drumming kind of reminds me, in a sense, of controlled violence.
Well, it probably is, really, But also, I've always had this thing about I hate injustice. I can't stand it when people do stuff, and you just think, look, everybody's got problems, but injustice, I can't stand it. So somebody's going to attack you, or somebody's going to attack or steal from you,
or your friends,
I hate
right?
theft, it's like that kind of thing. Or somebody comes into your dressing room after a gig and says gives you a load of shit, then I just think that's not acceptable. That's really not acceptable.
In the documentary I'm doing, which you were interviewed for, Ian, everybody that has rage says the word justice or injustice, because it's true. It's not like you're not the one pulling a Chelsea smile on somebody, but don't fuck with you.
Yeah.
Ian, I had 2 experiences in the Newcastle area where someone got aggressive with me. First one was like late at night, and all the bars had closed and all the drunks are poured out in the street, and there was like a kebab place that's open, and it's not my go-to, but if there's nothing around, I'm picking that over whatever else. So I'm in there, and these people were following me, and it was like this 2 guys and this kind of girl with this really bad pink hair and like one tooth, but like really not, like they're missing like one right in the middle, like a rabbit. It's like, I was like, how's that even possible? And so then basically I'm coming out and they're like, there he is, get him. And I'm like, huh? They were trying to coordinate something to like mug me, but they were so clumsy and dumb. I actually just walked by at a walking pace, like, okay, see, I'm getting in the cab. Bye. And then another time I was in Sunderland and I hadn't opened my mouth, and some fucker came up to me. He's like, you must be from Newcastle. And
no, really?
Yeah.
Maybe thought you were related to Ian. I don't know.
I somehow skated out.
All right. Well, okay. Ian, you have one of, and I've told this repeatedly to people, I want you to tell the story because this is one of my favorite rock stories. And it also signifies just how stubborn you can be, resilient, and again about justice. Please briefly tell the story about Gallon Drunk. So Anne was in Gallon Drunk, a fine, raunchy rock band for many years, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But one of my favorite stories is the lost briefcase of money. Can you sum that? Yeah. This is one of my all-time favorite rock stories.
Okay, I'll try and keep it quick.
Ian, please.
Okay, so I was looking after the money on this tour. I was driving as well. It was a really basic tour. So we were coming quite to the end.
What year?
Oh, probably 90.
Before cell phones.
Yeah. Before cell phones.
And after you finish the story, you have to explain to me why you were chosen to look after the money.
Because he's responsible.
Okay.
Don't interrupt. And let the man tell the story.
All right.
So we were coming. We'd done about 5 weeks already. So I had a briefcase full of money, and then we were driving down into Milan. We crossed from the Swiss border into the Italian border, and then because I was in charge of the money, I had this suitcase full of money, and then to pay the tolls for the to go into Italy. So I reached for the briefcase, and there was nothing there. And then, of course, I just thought, oh shit, that's a lot of money as well.
Right.
5 weeks tour. Everything was paid in cash then. There was no bank transfers anyway. So then I said to everybody, look, I've got to go back and find this. I don't know where I left it. This was it was already about 10 o'clock at night. And everybody was saying, you can't do that. You can't go back because where are you going to go? And I said, I don't care. I've just got to go. I've got to find it. So anyway, they eventually let me go. And then somebody wanted to come with me, but I said, look, we've got no chance hitching if there's two of us, two blokes looking a bit disheveled.
In the Swiss Alps.
In the Swiss Alps.
Oh, yes.
In the pouring rain.
Yeah. When I start hitching back up into the Alps, I get picked up by the police and they take me off and they dump me somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And then the biggest thunderstorm happened ever. I just had a t-shirt on, I think. It was because it was summer, but we were way up in the Alps. This massive thunderstorm happened. I had a paper map and I was looking at it to see where I could go, and that just disintegrated. And then I spent 2 whole days and 2 nights sleeping outside, just hitching back right up in the Alps. I mean, it was freezing. I was soaking wet. And it was, even though it was the summer or late summer, in the Alps, when you're that high up.
Very cold.
Oh, yeah.
It was freezing. So I was sleeping by the side of the road and then try and wake up and then get another lift. And then people were so kind. They'd take me back and forward through tunnels. And I got so disorientated because I didn't know where we'd been or where we were, anything, So this went on for 2 nights and 2 days. And then towards the end, I just thought, well, this is ridiculous. I'm exhausted. I haven't slept for 2 nights. I've been outside soaking wet.
Oh my God.
Hungry,
angry, and everything. No cell phones or anything, And then eventually I got a lift off this woman who was brilliant. And she said, and I said, can you just let's try this place. And we'd been through all of these tunnels back and forward. So I go into this place and I'm like on my knees by this point. I'm so depressed. I'm so tired. Then I go in and then I see this bloke in the pizza oven, the pizza kitchen, this really old guy. And I sort of stagger in there and just think, oh, this is my last chance. And then as I walk in, the old guy, he holds up this briefcase with this huge smile on his face. And I just burst into tears. I couldn't stop. And I
hope you had some pizza as well.
It was incredible. And I was hugging him. And then he was like, hey, look, briefcase. But he hadn't even opened it. So all of the money was there. There was, there was all different currencies in that time. There was no euro.
Right.
And it was incredible. And this woman had waited for me and I got the money and then she took me all the way to this little train station in the middle of the Alps, sent me to get back to Milan. And then when I got to Milan, I managed to get hold of those people through a payphone, the rest of the bank. And they said, oh, we'd been to the Italian police. And they said, oh, if your friend's gone up into the Alps tonight,
he'll never come back.
Him again. That's what they said. They said, you won't see him again. And then they went to the British embassy and they said, that was in a thunderstorm like that in the Alps, you won't see him again.
Only Ian White would have, because he is a saint. And by the way, he is in my church, the only Reverend Ian White. His halo grew exponentially.
But you can imagine if you were responsible for, I felt so guilty that I just thought, I don't even care what happens to me. I have to try and, if I can't find it, which I never thought I would, but I thought at least I can say, I've tried everything I can do.
Right.
But then I couldn't ever believe that I would find it. That was unbelievable.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible. And that guy
touching on the feelings of guilt for a minute. Yeah, I'm going sideways from that because, you and I should have, I don't any guilt, neither does Tim. But what led you, because I'm going to go just sideways on this, but what led you to become an expert in religious art, which is one of the things that, besides being an expert in Persian rugs and music, but what led you to selling, marketing religious art? And how did you become? Tell me about that.
I mean, basically what happened, I was always fascinated in history and I did a degree in Latin and archaeology and Greek. I got expelled for being
for being irreligious.
Yes. I got expelled after 2 years, which was a bit annoying. And then I became a restorer of sculpture and tapestries. And then I got a job with an auction house, and then I just built up my knowledge. And I've always loved this stuff, you know. So it's like it's more of a passion. And then I started to try and, you know, I worked for an auction house for 7 years, and then started to try and buy and sell stuff. So, and I just love being around the stuff. Obviously, I need to sell it because I don't have money to
collect.
Yeah. So,
but as you are the reverend, and I consider you not a man of the cloth as much as a man of the tissue, which that's just not an insult, it's a compliment, because you've had to give me tissues on stage before.
Yeah. But I think, you know, there's something about religious art. It's so dark. It's so magical. It makes you kind of, there's something brilliant about, you know, when you look at a crucifixion like this in my studio. I don't know if you can see that on the wall. Where is it? Can you see that? Probably not.
It's kind of shaky.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, but there's something about these sort of stuff, you know, suffering in art is pretty exciting.
but Ian, isn't it? I mean, if you're an artist and you're in Europe, you kind of had to be religiously themed. So it's, what can you get away with within these tight margins? It's kind of the magic, at least one element, at least.
I always thought Gallon Drunk was a quite religious experience, put it that way.
Yeah.
Very raucous, very raunchy, sexy, and totally not at all recognized. But I love when Cedric of Mars Volta once, in his only text to me, said, "I can't believe you're working with Gallon Drunk. I have a magnet of them on my refrigerator." I'm like, what? Even I don't have one of those.
Well, you know, James, he's like, you know, he's a very strange bloke. You know, he's fantastic, and on stage, he's different from when he's off stage. He's just very contained and very quiet, which I quite like that, you know,
we might get to James Johnston one day and all of his peculiarities, but we're talking to Ian White, who's played with James Johnston, Gallon Drunk, Big Sexy Noise, many things with me, and now has released his first fantastic solo record. Yes, Tim.
But Ian, so when did you leave the Newcastle area? When were you like, I'm out?
I left when I was 18.
18.
I'd never been to London, and I thought, I've got to get out of here. So I came down here to go to college. That was a good excuse, and then I got expelled. But then I just thought, oh, this is brilliant being down here,
right,
away from like really small town. I mean, Newcastle's quite, you know, it's not as bad as some tiny towns, but I mean, it's a small town place, you know.
Did you know the Venom guys? Did you know any of that? I mean, I don't know how you didn't know. I mean, I'm trying to think about who was in Newcastle when you were you had Last Exit, which was Sting's first band. You had Venom. Who I don't know what else was going on in Newcastle.
That's one of the reasons he left Newcastle. There's two reasons right there: Sting and Venom. I'm out. But Ian, back to suffering in art. I mean, you went to London. You didn't know anybody there, and it was pretty freaking rough.
Yeah.
Even expelling for college. I mean, I've heard stories that, you know, park benches became your friend for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I was sleeping outside because I just didn't really connect with people. You know, it was a very lonely place to be then. I mean, it still can be now, but luckily I've got friends now. But I think then coming down here at 18 was, it was really difficult. And then just, I would rather sleep outside than actually
being a squatter's den.
Yeah, or sharing a big house with idiots, you know. So yeah, that's how it sort of developed.
Rather to sleep alone with your own intelligence and dignity
exactly.
than to squat with a bunch of crusties.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, you're kicked out of college, so you have the knowledge of art. How did you hook up? Was Gallon Drunk your first musical project?
I was playing with some other terrible shit. You know, I did some pretty bad jazz stuff. Well, I was playing with some jazz bands in pubs, some dare I say it, even some jazz funk. And so, but you know, they were good musicians, and it was instrumental, and it was quite good for me. And then,
well, and by the way, Tim was complimenting the fact that you have such groovy rhythm, and maybe that comes from the fact that when you were, you know, growing your fangs, it was on jazz.
No, I think that's
funk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so, you know, I don't like jazz funk at all, but it's quite good to to be able to play
Tim, what
it.
jazz funk do you like?
I like Herbie Hancock. I like. I mean, there's definitely good examples and there's horrendous examples. So,
Yeah, of course. Like Donald Byrd, he's brilliant.
I mean, I actually, well, we don't. It's not about me. I can go deep into this conversation, but if you're on another day, I'll tell you which jazz funk I like and which ones I don't like.
All right, you can make the list, Tim. Tie it up with us. And so you're down in London, and you're getting these. How are you getting gigs with, as you said, good jazz musicians? Did you just like approach? How did you?
No, it was just through like friends that I knew when I was working in this Italian restaurant as a waiter.
They all came in.
Yeah. And people would come in, and then some of the girls I was working with, you know, like, oh, my boyfriend plays the saxophone, he's looking for somebody to play the drums, you know, that kind of stuff. And then it just sort of went from there. And it was quite fun actually playing with like, you know, like a proper horn section like the JBs, you know, trombone,
yeah, cool,
tenor and alto. So that actually was quite a great experience. I mean, the music wasn't brilliant, but it wasn't, at least it was instrumental, and it was very like the JBs. So it was, you know, it wasn't offensive. It was jazz.
And good training ground. Great training ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Band, as opposed to being, you know, in one narrow field of
rhythm section players get the I wouldn't say advantage, but we get to experience a lot of genres just because people need us, and so it builds up a lot of things for better or for worse. But keep on going.
No, I agree with you. You know, because there were these guys were all really good musicians, and I was dragged along a bit, you know, because I wasn't as good as them. But I'm playing with percussion players and these horn players. They're all music college trained. You know, they weren't very dynamic, but at least they were really good at what they did. So I could, and it was a bit of a struggle for me, you know, to try and keep up with that. But I managed, and I learned a lot by playing with those people, and they sort of dragged me along with them. So, and it was great playing with a proper, you know, guy playing congas and percussion. When you're playing the drums with that kind of stuff, it gets really exciting, you know. And then it's, I don't know, it's quite fun doing all that sort of stuff.
Okay,
where you go down.
Yeah, right. Was Gallon Drunk like the first thing that you really felt committed to?
Gallon Drunk was the first sort of proper band. You know, I sort of got sent a cassette tape, and I just thought, fucking hell, this is awful. I don't even know what this. I don't even know how to play this. This is terrible. And then I went for an audition. And then it's actually
probably felt the same thing when we first started working together, but we'll get to that in a minute. Go ahead.
And I went to an audition, and I was the only person who went to the audition who could actually play the drums.
And what year about was this, Ian?
This is 1993.
Okay.
And then after, you know, years later, James told me the reason you got the job, because you could actually play, nobody else could play, and you turned up in a tweed suit. And he said he thought if he comes in a tweed suit, he's got to be all right. I just finished work, you know. I was working at this.
Well, big difference between British and U.S. Americans. I always love a man in a suit, preferably three-piece, booted and suited, or suited and booted. All right, so you're in Gallon Drunk, and it's 93, because Gallon Drunk was, you trod the road for many a year.
Yeah.
You didn't give up. You kept going. Years. Yeah. And a lot of recordings. And loved by the press, but as we all know, means nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Means nothing. Means nothing. And then so the Gallon Drunk thing is going. And also, what about the Derek Raymond soundtrack? And were you part of that? Because it was.
I wasn't part of that. I mean, I met Derek Raymond, but I didn't do the soundtrack. But I met him, and you know, he was
Derek Raymond. For people that don't know, is an amazing British crime writer. But okay, that's one.
And then what we did one gig with Derek Raymond at the NFT, the National Film Theatre in London. So he was reading, and we did some music for him, and then. I think very soon after that he died. I don't know if it was related.
I've killed a few in my day. One of my favorite Derek Raymond books is I Was Doris Suarez.
Oh yeah, Doris Suarez.
I'm just recommending that to people anyway. So how long was the Gallon Drunk run? I mean, decades pretty much.
I mean, we went on till, I don't know, like 2016, 2017. So a long time, you know, and very, very unsuccessful. We had some very bad luck.
And very good records.
Very good records, but we dropped by Warner Brothers. We were going to be signed to Island Records, but when Island came to the gig, I think James and two other people, we had gastroenteritis, so we were all running off the stage with diarrhea, and so the gig was a disaster. All the heads of Island were.
Thought you were going to shoot up backstage.
But Ian, if you simulcasted the bathroom, you might have gotten the deal.
I know.
Certainly now, if that happened.
It was so tragic, really, because we did a demo for Island, which they really, really liked in their studios, and then they all came down to this gig.
And you're all shitting your pants.
And everybody's shitting themselves. And so they just
said, that was the real show. Island doesn't know what to fucking look for. They got to send different scouts next time.
Yeah.
They have a scout crouching in the toilet the whole time.
I mean, our most recent intro for a podcast, I termed the phrase poopadelic. So maybe you were actually the initiators of poopadelic.
Exactly. Maybe. Yeah. So... yeah, that was a bit
within the Gallon Drunk time frame. What else? You did some other things too. I mean, you played with Mick Harvey, is that right?
I didn't play with Mick Harvey, no.
Well, you did a wise choice not to.
Yeah. I didn't do that. No.
And
I played with Barry Adamson.
Oh, okay. No, that's the story I love too. Barry Adamson, for those that don't know, came out of Magazine and released incredible West Side Story, a few really great records. A bit of I don't even know what to call him because he's rather picky, shall we say. And I think you were fired for enjoying yourself on the side of the stage between songs.
True, yeah.
And he thought you were laughing at him.
Yeah, me and James were fired for actually having a great time.
You would have been fired from working with me if you weren't having a good time.
I know, exactly. So it was a shame. I mean, to say the least. He was using these in-ear monitors, and he heard me and James talking. What we were talking about this was in Athens, just before we played, and me and James were saying, actually, God, it's so brilliant. This has been so much fun, hasn't it? And then
not a good enough compliment.
No, he either misheard or misunderstood it. Then he took us to one side and said, "You're fired."
Oh my God.
What a dick.
Anyway, enjoy your gig. Yeah.
I think something that really dickish that happened to James Johnston is when he went on to play with Nick Cave, and then basically they stole James's sound and they kicked him out of the band.
Well, yeah.
Welcome to the biz.
Yeah, exactly.
Ian, when did you and I how did we meet? Because I had been working with Terry Edwards. Through
Terry. Terry said to me,
Terry Edwards.
Yeah, there's somebody
who got fired from Big 60 Noise.
Yes, exactly. So he said when you were going to do a European tour, that you needed somebody like a percussionist or something to do this tour. So I said, "Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to." I mean, I didn't know anything about it really. That was 2000 and I think I'm right in saying 2009. It's been that long.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
And at that point, I was doing. I don't know if we were using backing tracks or not, but it was kind of what I call illustrated word.
Yeah, at first it was spoken word. Then we started
with
doing
sax and drums.
Yeah. And it was weird because I remember very clearly. I first met you on the plane because we didn't even bother to rehearse. You sent me loads of stuff.
I should. Hey, I'm dealing with experts, and besides, I mean, the words are I know the words.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Carry on. Freedom.
And then, so I was on a plane, and I'd never met you obviously before. So we were on a plane to Athens for the first gig, and you just came up to me and say, "Hi, I'm Lydia Lunch." I said, "Okay, hello, I'm playing with you." I know, and that was it. And then that night we did our first gig, and then I mean we've been playing together for it's almost 20 years, I think.
And I try to squeeze you in anytime I can. But so also just the nature of our working together. So we started by doing this kind of psycho ambient, a little bit jazzy, illustrated word, total freedom improv for you. And I think you were you were standing up playing the drums.
Yeah.
Which was mandatory. Then we went on to just do a 2-piece. Then we also went on to do you, me, James, and Terry with, again, the same format. And do you recall that one fateful time in Russia?
Continue.
We went to Russia, and this was, again, when I'm doing this production, I think it was my piece, Real Pornography, which was all about war. And previous to going on stage, I had warned the sound man to lay off my cognac. And I actually gave him I took him by the throat and pushed him into the wall. He was barely taller than I was. And I said, do not fuck around here. And we get onto the stage to do this very, intense improv music, war-based diatribe, and suddenly we hear the reverb or the echo just go da 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 da, and the sound man had fallen asleep on the board. All right. Oh, fury follows. Okay, best part next day, because then Gallon Drunk were doing the show. So we're all still there, and there's a dinner. And the sound man, bold as he was, came up to me and sat next to me. We're all sitting at a table, and he goes, I just want to apologize. And what did I do? In the face as hard as possible.
Nice.
It was an incredible punch in his face, and he went down. But the good thing, in a way, he got up and he went, "You're right. You're right."
I'll never do that again. I've saved some people's careers with a good slapper punch on the face.
It was so exciting to see me, to do that, because you didn't want to, you just wanted to tell him that is not acceptable. And then when he said, "Yeah, you're right," and then you were fine with him, so you knocked him down after what he really.
And then I gave him a hug.
And then you did, and then it was all fine for the rest of the
evening. that sequence is familiar.
It was quick retribution, and then it was all fine. Then everybody was happy.
I don't hold a grudge. I throw a punch.
Exactly. And that's what he needed. It was ridiculous what he did.
It was awful. And I had warned him. And anyway, there were huge bouncers. And I'm like, do you understand why I don't need you? Watch out for this little fucker. Anyway, it wasn't long after that. I think we were doing a poetry festival in Italy, and we were both outside, you and I. And you said, Big Mama Lunch, I wasn't called that then, we need a rock band. And I'm going, yes, we do. And then we just went back and came up with the name on the spot, Big Sexy Noise. Like, it has to be this, Big Sexy Noise. And also, I've rocked before, but Gallon Drunk was total hard raunch, good rock. And I wanted something that really rocked, because at that point too, we had a lot of similar taste in what kind of rock music and listening to what we were. And in 1999 is when we started working together.
Yeah, not 2000. No, that was 1999. So a long, long time. Yeah.
Which is basically half of our creative life.
Yeah.
We've been doing various things. And again, it started with like this kind of psycho ambient, a little bit went on to like jazz noir kind of stuff, sometimes with backing tracks. That evolved before the concept of, which came out of your mouth, a rock band, which formed quickly Big Sexy Noise. What I was surprised about with Big Sexy Noise is Gallon Drunk was not known, James Johnston was not known as the quickest gunslinger for songs ever, but he came up with, I don't think I rejected one song, and we had so many classics. And how do you even describe Big Sexy Noise? Big Sexy Noise is how it's described.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just, I think, the idea, I just had a very vague idea about doing something really basic with your brilliant lyrics. I thought your lyrics and your performance mixed with James's ability to make riffs, and then just my, quite sort of Neanderthal drumming.
Thunderous drumming.
Thunderous drumming.
And the thing is, we became even better when it was just you, me, and James. Originally, Terry Edwards was in it, but when we became a three-piece, which I always love a three-piece.
Yeah.
Nobody missed a bass player. Sorry, Tim. But nobody missed it in Big Sexy Noise because James was playing through a guitar and a bass amp.
Yeah, he had the octave splitter, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he linked it up. So he just played. And also the great thing about that, they were never out of time. It was genius idea. No, the guitar and the bass sounds were always in time, obviously, because it was one person. So.
Right, unison.
One of my favorite escapades or song remembrances is when we were in a small place in Italy where that Live in Italy recording came out of. And I think it's that when we're doing Forever on the Run, which, by the way, Retrovirus is now closing with. Oh, yeah. Whoa. But this was a show where Ian's cheerful sadism just drives the end of it until our whole point in this song, Forever on the Run, was exhausting the audience as the last song, because we can go on forever. Usually I would end up gagging after that song and a lot of sputum. if not wetting the stage in other ways. But there was just this gig, you just were not letting the band stop. So you were not, usually we like to tire the audience out. You were ridiculously fantastic. And I'm like, you motherfucker, the chuckling sadist at the drums.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was fun. I love that. It's a great recording, actually. Really good. Just three of us, and it was recorded really well, and it's really powerful. And also, you're incredibly funny, I must admit. When I haven't heard it for ages, but last time I heard it, there's some of the banter between songs. It's so brilliant, and it's a joy to listen to.
Well,
frankly.
because we're chuckle fuckers, and if I'm not making the drummer almost break a rib, he's making me almost break a rib from having to keep up with him. It makes sense.
It also serves a function if you're an instrumentalist in the band, because there's certain preparations you do before certain songs, and just to have that, it's multi-layered. It's entertaining, and you're filling up the fucking space because
and I get a chance to have a breather.
There you go.
Lydia's going to be talking, telling whatever she's saying.
Telling them if they haven't shaved their face, they probably haven't washed their ass. And how old are you anyway, son?
That was always such a joy for me. It was just, I was laughing all the way through the whole thing. I mean, even when I was playing, I was laughing. It was so brilliant because it was like, it was like being in a
comedy vaudeville.
It was so brilliant, I loved it.
Vaudeville and burlesque. Well, I mean, what's amazing is in your solo performances, we're going to get into that in a minute because I have one more incredible big sexy noise story. You're quite cheerful while you're doing your solo stuff, which is to me fantastic to see somebody who's actually like laughing and enjoying themselves while mastering this material on the drums. Do you remember this stunt I pulled? I have to say it because it's so ridiculous to me. So, Tim.
Yes.
The British boys of Big Sexy Noise, that's two of them, James Johnson and Ian White.
Yep.
They had no idea. And this is, the best rock bio ever is Three Dog Nightmare. They had no idea what Three Dog Night is, right? Why should
they must have known some of the songs.
Hang
Not
on.
one.
Hang on.
Right.
They really didn't. So I wanted to do a medley as an encore. And they're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, just play a rock riff. And my medley was, One Is the Loneliest Number.
That's famous.
Eli's coming, and Mama told me not to come. Now, hang on.
All right.
Boys in band had no idea. They just are playing a riff. There was one guy in the audience, about 75, who got it. And this is a great freaking track, and I have it recorded. It was in Drewsburg. They're like, Three Dog Night. I never heard these songs.
Drewsburg.
Wait, hang on a second, though. But then do you remember we were in Israel, and a Three Dog Night song came on in a bar we were in? Three Dog Night. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well, so Ian, I think what it was is, Three Dog Night, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Chicago. These are like post Sinatra. They're like big band rock. Yeah. So there's all sorts of, maybe that shit didn't really make it in Britain.
They were disgusting. The Brits hated them. They didn't write any of their own material. They sold 80 million records, and Chuck Negron ends up with a duffel bag and his face down in a plate of carbonara.
And three-quarters of his lungs are in a dump somewhere. He has half a lung. He's still going. Is
he really? Wow.
Oh yeah, he still does the fucking casino.
Got the walrus mustache.
Well, I mean, Ian, it goes further than that. My landlord.
My God.
She's one of his. She's one of his old groupie assistants, and she would travel.
I met her. She's upstairs.
She would travel, and he'd have to be pushing a wheelchair into the
19
casinos.
times in rehab.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Well, he got remarried, and she got a little excommunicated. The new wife got jealous of these groupies that were pushing him around in wheelchair.
I'm always jealous of a 60-year-old groupie being one myself. Anyway, so Ian, okay, so Big Sexy Noise, we loved it. That went on as long as it could until James Johnson decided, as I like to call him, wanted to become a painter, as I like to call him, Piscasso. Very successful in his painting career.
Oh my God.
But that did not stop you and I from continuing. So then one of the next things we did is I was doing the suicide tribute with Mark Hurtado, and I like, Ian, get on the bill. And I was quite amazed because, I know you had been working on what eventually became this masterpiece, Blyth, which is just out now, that it was so exciting what you were doing in this. And I've had complaints from other drummers that nobody wants to hear drum solos. Excuse me. People love to see drummers.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Tell us a little bit about how you formulated, because you're also using electronics or samples. It's very diverse. It's in a sense, it's exotic and a bit erotic. There's no vocals. You don't need them.
I wouldn't even say it's a drum solo. It's just
No.
you're making music, and that's it.
Yeah.
You happen to play drums, or you're just making music, and there's a lot of stuff going on.
What are some of the other tools you're using in this?
Say again?
What are some of the other tools besides drums and percussion? Like, what are the electronics or samples or what?
Yeah, sometimes I started messing around with stuff, which I can't, I can't play anything. I can't play piano and stuff, but I started messing around with stuff and just leaving a little piano and then affecting it, making it sound a bit weird or electronic, and then turning it, doing, probably obvious stuff like taking a note and then, or two notes and turning it backwards and stuff.
Yeah,
like
a lot of reverse.
Yeah,
I just listened to it actually earlier today, and I don't know if it was conscious or not, but there's kind of just like hints at kind of old Mellotron kind of sounds, like early 70s psychedelia, and so those kind of those kind of timbres were kind of reminding me of that, but in a 2021 way, contemporary perspective of that.
Where did the vocal samples come from? There's a few vocal things in there. They're so beautiful and so weird and so surprising. And I'm just like, oh my God, those are some of them really, I just got goosebumps talking about them. I was very impressed. Where do those come from?
They come from pretty much from, I think, a couple of them from really old, like films, like a moment, and then the vocal, I've
stretching
taken
it, whatever.
Yeah, either stretching it or even pitch shifting it down or up. I can't remember. So I've just taken one word and then I've actually stretched it or made it. I can't remember which one, but and then pitch shifted it so it will match the. So it's literally it'll be one word. It might not even be sung, but like, there's something from an old Italian film.
Fantastic. Now, you know what? I forget often where my samples are coming from because I have very little material, but that's the beauty then. Oh, it came from here. I'm not even sure where. And now there it is.
Yeah.
Reconstructed into something that no one would recognize anyway.
No, of course. I mean, that was also, I had to be a big part of that. I wasn't going to use massive samples just taken from people. But if you take one note or one, there's some piano notes that I've taken. There's some Chopin, there's some Elgar, just one note then reversed and pitch shifted in a different, down or up, So there's all sorts of stuff in there that are just one note samples.
And you were working on this for quite a while. I think
since probably about 2018, really, and then I moved into the studio where I'm living, and so I ended up just messing around. There's nothing else to do really. So and it just all came together gradually, and it was
it's coherent, it's cohesive, yet it's diverse, which I think is a really good aspect of it because it's pretty much seamless. I'm just very happy that there you go. And you know what? We will be doing shows in one way or another very soon because that's what we do.
But also, that was another reason why I started doing it, because I was, the idea of playing live to me is essential. I just love playing. And when we were not doing so many gigs and Gallon Drunk stopped, and it's really hard for me not to play live. I'll play in front of a dog and a cat.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention also, by the way, we have met some very interesting non-human friends on tour. You and me, we happen to run into cats, rabbits, and dogs everywhere we go. We just do. And suddenly there are friends for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Sorry.
So did you mix it yourself, or did you go to a mixing engineer? And where did you record it, by the way?
I did a lot of it here, actually, in this room.
The drums and too.
No, I didn't do the live drums. I did the live drums in another studio nearby.
Right. Okay.
So that only took a couple of days because I wanted to have a bigger sound for the drums.
Right. Yeah.
And then lockdown happened just after I'd finished. So then I ended up mixing it here, and then mixing it with the guy who'd also engineered the drums. But we were sending back and forward files, and it was pretty tedious. I must say.
The drum sound though, it's a nice and large drum sound. It really sounds expansive. I really like
and it sounds really like it did live, which was grand to me because I loved the live, having you on the bill with the live shows, but it does sound like the live shows. It sounds lively and very impressive that way. And it does,
you know, a lot of the live drums, they're not cut up. They're actually played from start to finish. And then there's a lot of the other sounds which are, you know, they've been cut or they've inserted. But a lot of the live drums, and there's some electronic drum kits which I did here, and so they're, you know, they've been, some of those have been looped, but then the live drums are played live, and I didn't loop those. They're all played all the way through on most of the tracks.
I've always said one thing about you, the Reverend Ian White. He's got a lot of stamina.
Yeah, that's the thing. Oh, I've actually
really has a lot of stamina. No, he absolute. Come on. Yeah. Keep up with me and keep chuckling. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Tim's got a lot of stamina too.
Yeah, well,
he's not gonna sit down on the job.
Hey, one of your next covers, Lydia, could be Stamina in replacing Panama by Van Halen.
I've already done Not Talking Bad Love. I didn't even know it was
Stamina.
I didn't even know it was a Van Halen song. That's another one of my great unreleased records with Sylvia Black, but I didn't upset about that. So, Rev, what's they're still not letting unfortunately, otherwise you'd be in my apartment now doing this podcast.
Exactly.
But they're not letting the Brits into America. I don't get it.
They're letting other Europeans in now, but not Brits.
Filthy Brits.
Well, because with this new strain from India is kind of taking over.
Yeah. So they're not letting any British people into America at all at the minute.
Well, I think.
Well, I mean, a friend of mine came from Ireland, but I don't know how she squeezed in.
Well, Ireland's not part of, Brexit changed everything.
Brexit changed everything. That happened. God, yeah. I mean, that's a nightmare. It's
But there was a big summit or a meeting between your guy Boris and Biden and
he's not my guy.
I'm teasing.
Tim, did you hear about my new collective, the G-Spot 7?
Oh yeah.
Hey, along with Loud Girls. I'm just saying.
Loud Girls and the G-Spot 7. Oh yeah, that's the band. Loud Girls on the G-Spot 7.
Oh my God, I feel it coming on. And you know what? When I feel it coming, it's coming.
Excellent.
As a man of the tissue, you know what I'm talking about. You had to hand me Benny on stage. Go ahead.
What about within Britain? Are pubs and venues open now?
There's no venues open. Pubs are open, but you have to be socially distanced inside.
Okay.
And I don't think there's no gigs going on at the minute. So I think that I might be able to do a gig at the end of this month or the beginning of July, but it's going to be a socially distanced gig. So, and I don't know about that. I don't know what the point is that, because if there's 50 people there, socially distanced. I mean, frankly, I've done a lot of socially distanced gigs before this ever happened.
So Ian, I also do a lot of kind of avant-garde music, and they're like, well, this venue can happen, but only at 30% capacity. It's like, you mean everyone?
As usual. As usual. No, it's the same with cancel culture. I say I cancel the audience before they cancel me. Don't worry about it. I'm in the pocket here.
So nothing here is really, I don't know. I haven't really been to many pubs because I don't really want to go to them at the minute because they're boring.
Fair enough.
But Ian, also what's interesting about you is you are a very social person, but you're also a hermit. You're kind of like me. I mean, I can be very social, but I can be perfectly fine being, in my own, as a hermit, in my own convent, with or without the convent. It's like, we do have that. We do long for live performances. We can be very social. We can be the last men standing, but we're also... just recalling the last time you came to visit me, and you were with me, I think maybe 10 days.
10 days.
We saw nobody else but each other.
Didn't I run into you?
We hermited together.
I don't think you did, Tim. You didn't even.
No.
I don't think you did.
We saw one other person. Was
I touring or something?
I'm sorry, you weren't invited. We saw one person, Ian. One person and one black squirrel. We saw one person, and I had only met them that evening, I think.
We went
And
to
he
that
was
bar,
interesting.
that Brooklyn, whatever that
We
place
went to the
was.
High Dive. That's
Yeah,
right.
the High Dive. We
Oh,
went
the High
there.
Dive.
Other than
Oh
that,
yes, that's my sadist spot. That's where I go and I'm abusing
we
there.
practiced our own hermitage.
But also, we had fantastic food. We just sat there. I arrived on Christmas Eve, and I stayed there for 10 days just eating.
I supplied you with a pair of very Hugh Hefner type pajamas as one of your gifts.
I wear those every night. They're brilliant.
There was no reason to get out of our pajamas. Of course, mine are, those change daily, but we had a grand time because, again,
you just gave me great food. We just drank wine, had loads of food, and just sat around in our pajamas.
We won't discuss the other things that we entertained
Do you
ourselves
have a comfort food, Ian? Is there like a go-to for you that really?
You know what I really love?
Yes.
I've actually your namesake dal. I love dal.
The Indian dish, yes.
I actually love.
Ian, I am making some red lentil dal today. If only you were here, but I'm going to be thinking of you with everybody.
Fantastic. There we are.
Yeah, but just to let you know, I have no relation, like no heritage relation with the dish, with the food.
I do like French fries as well, which is terrible, or chips.
Well, I mean, do you like the British ones more or the Belgian ones? I mean, the Belgians with the Fritz stands. I do too. They're incredible.
Yeah, they're great. But
you potato head boy. A potato rarely touches my lips unless it's sweet.
Oh, now we're talking. So you might have a show at the turn of the month.
Yes.
But really, I guess what? The UK just wants to bring the numbers down. You're going to see what happens with this new strain. What's it called? Delta? What's the name?
The Indian variant. And now they're Delta variant, maybe because of,
There's another take on a song. It could be Delta Doll instead of Delta Dawn.
Oh, God. Oh, my. Yeah, where's this going?
What are you doing when the Delta variant comes? I was sitting home alone eating some fucking doll, and I don't mean Tim. Anyway, Ian, we have things to look forward to, at least in the fall, because we are going to be doing some shows come hell or hell again, and that's what we're looking forward to, and those are going to be a combination of things. And the thing is, you, like me, like Tim, we are road dogs.
Absolutely.
We're road dogging. We love to be on tour.
That being on the road, that's been really difficult for me.
It's Ian, it's really insane because after this year, sometimes I would party to kind of meet some kind of like actual high, like not just getting fucked up, but just like a certain state of mind. And I just did a solo show in Iceland, and I was pretty, I had maybe a drink or two before, and I couldn't get over, this is after 15 months, the actual adrenaline high. I was like, I fucking forgot how insane that is after a show. I almost to a point where like, is this good for me? But it is. But it's just like, holy shit, it is so insane. Like I was on basically no substances, and I really felt just fucked up. I was like, wow.
Yeah, of course. That's what it is, and that's what I've missed. That high before the anxiety or whatever, before the
excitement, Ian.
The excitement, and then afterwards, it's always goes well. You're never going to do it badly, but the high you get afterwards it's like you can forget about.
Well, look, art should be, as well as music, the salve to the universal wound, including our own, and the endorphins that. And it's not only, it's the endorphins that stimulate in you, but also this is why there is an audience, because there is some kind of cleansing, going on. Well, I mean, or filthifying, depending on, that can be clean as well. Go high to go low, get high to go low, get high so you're not low, whatever. It's very, the communication.
Also, the audience as well. If there's one person that comes up to you and say that was such a brilliant night. That's enough. That you've done a fantastic thing for anybody who gets.
I usually like if it's 2 or 3 people, but one will do.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
but Ian, I have
all that matters.
I have a theory about that, and it's like, why is the touring band better than the local band? Now they could be equal in aesthetic, content, and ability. but there's something more because the local band is compartmentalizing their day. They're getting up and they're doing their thing, and then they have to like compartmentalize this kind of performance character. When you're touring, you slowly start morphing into that stage character 24/7, and it's a vicarious celebration away from the audience's experience of every day. Like, I'm going to this 9-to-5 job, and like, look at these renegades, look at these outlaws who are just basically breaking down this everyday monotonous structure that most of society is forced into.
All right, but also, Tim, what people have to realize is being a touring band is a longer, usually, than 9-to-5 job. It's a 9 to midnight job.
It's a 0 to 24.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is what people don't realize is how many, and which of the Rolling Stones brilliantly said, it's like 25 years of waiting, 5 years of playing. Hello.
Yeah, but you know, and it's going back to that adrenaline thing, because when, say, family members or friends or look at like some of my schedules, are like, how the fuck can you do this? But then it's like this adrenaline, these endorphins, that high.
It's all for that 1 hour on stage,
pushing you through 25 days, 35 days straight. You know.
Well, also what's interesting, Ian, do you remember, like we were talking earlier about the Gallon Drunk, like 5-week tour. We used to do, even me with really weird and disparate stuff, 5 or 6 week tours in Europe. Now 2 weeks, if you're lucky. Right. How did we even do 5 or 6 weeks? And we used to do that. It's impossible.
Exactly like Tim was saying, you know, what you do, you end up, when I did 5 or 6 week tours, I couldn't stand the idea of going home. You know, I was so high all the way through. I was tired. I was dirty. I had dirty clothes. But I just wanted it to carry on forever. You know, it's like the idea of, and also I think in answer to Tim's question, you know, the idea of being a touring band, you know, you go from place to place to place. And it's just, you know, you have a lot of fun. You are laughing a lot of that time. And you know you're going to deliver at the end of that day. And then you know you're going to end up in a shit hotel
in Milan with dead bugs and blood stains on the wall.
Oh,
Never
boy.
my favorite hotels.
You know, the shower's not going to work. The drawers are going to come apart. You can't get into your hotel. And it's just, you're so exhausted. And it's just funny. The whole thing is funny. And that's the brilliant thing, because you do this one gig and then you have all around it, even if you're exhausted, you're just laughing all the time.
Ian, Ian, you, I, and Tim, we love to laugh. And we will find the humor in most things, because otherwise you're a miserable cunt. Get out of the fucking band, motherfucker.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, laugh in the face of horror. I mean,
yeah.
We have to. I mean, Tim and I always have a great time. Ian, you are one of my favorite people. We have had so many great times since 1999, and there are more to come. That's all I can say, because we get it. And it doesn't matter how much pain. And look, Tim has pain. I have pain. You're the king of pain. Then we were touring with Mark Hurtado, the absolute king upon kings of pain.
Yeah.
Who got out of the taxi on the last Suicide Tribute, Ian White double bill, and fainted with pain.
Yeah,
Carry on. Carry on. This, I have to say, when I'm touring with Mark Hurtado and Ian White, this is the most pain-riddled car, but nobody is ever complaining about it. And we did learn a lot about Vicks Vapor Rub, which seems to solve about 23 problems. We looked it up one night, and actually, that kind of made all of us feel better. Really, Vicks Vapor Rub, put it up there. It helped. I can't believe it. This was the most pain-riddled car. It was almost as if we had been shot by machine guns with pain, sleeping not. Nobody was complaining. Even when Hurtado fainted on the sidewalk.
I know.
Went on to do the gig, because it's the gig that should be the relief to the performers in the audience.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's what it comes down to, you know. And you know, Tim knows that, you know that. Everybody who plays live knows that it's. Tim
and I share a very specific pain, which occasionally, very rarely. Oh, I've never heard anybody else. I hope to never. Rarely. It usually happens to me when I'm at an airport. And Ian, you've had to push me in wheelchairs, sunglasses, and a cigarette at airports in agony. Tim and I have this condition. Mine usually only happens from the back of my hips to the front of my waist, numb, meaning even the punani has gone to sleep. It feels like I told him this one day, he goes, I've had it too. My balls get numb. I'm like, what? Never at the same time. Otherwise we would be like those, like, you know, puppets with no legs. I'm like, are you shitting me? He goes, no, I've had it. And it's numb up to my balls. I'm like, all right, I might not use it enough as I should at this point, but does it have to go to sleep?
Well, I mean, that again with the touring, if you're moving and then it's like full action, and then you're on an airplane for 5 hours. Then you're on so it's like everything starts seizing up, and basically it's like.
Well, usually mine is seizing before I even get on the plane, and then it's all fine and dandy because I'm stimulating all those muscles, trying not to get thrombosis, which I don't think anybody's had in 20 years anyway. Anyway, Ian, it is such a pleasure to know you, to perform with you, to have you on this show. We're going to play some of your music. I'm so happy it's out, and so happy and looking forward to the coming future.
Yeah, I can't wait to get together again and do some stuff, or even just to see you, anybody, just to do stuff. I mean,
I think you might need to start wearing, as Hurtado does, a corset, so I don't break your ribs when you're laughing.
You're right.
Because you have warned me before. All right, that's enough. I'm like,
yeah, I am a chuckler. You're right.
I am. We are chuckle fuckers of the highest order. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch Timdahl and our special guest, Ian White, Gallon Drunk, Big Sexy Noise, new album, Blyth, and many other masterpieces. A man after everything I am, and love him for it. I'm going to call you, Ian, on WhatsApp. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
See you. Great seeing you, Ian.
Thank you.